As the world commemorates this year's International Human Rights Day, Nigerians are grappling with a number of rights that are yet to be adequately guaranteed. With prevailing insecurity, the right to safety is uppermost. The lack of basic amenities such as access to clean water, food, and healthcare are also of concern. Discussions at this Human Rights Day celebration focus on reaffirming the values of human rights. The conversation raises profound questions. What changes can we champion as individuals? What silence can we break? What role does the government play in ensuring that access to the law is a fundamental human right rather than a privilege?
Human rights are essential. They are day-to-day requirements or day-to-day rights that we cannot do without. And you can talk about different types of rights. The right to life, the right to, in some jurisdictions we talk about the right to health care. We talk about the right to education. Even in Nigeria, we have the universal basic education law. These essentially underline the importance that the international community, through the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, recognizes that every human being should be able to enjoy some basic essentials.
So in terms of security too, the Honorable Minister of Interior has established e-border system. This is a system whereby all the correctional centers in Nigeria are covered by cameras 24 hours. There was the first scheme containing about 30 custodial centers was undertaken last year. This year there's a second phase which will cover a lot of correctional services.
At another event, senior advocate Femi Falana asserts that Nigeria's fight against terrorism will remain ineffective unless the government addresses social welfare and unemployment issues.
We only talk of physical insecurity, acquiring ammunition, arms and ammunition for the military, reorganize the police. We never address the most important aspect of security, and that is social security. And my position is that you may spend all the money you have in the world on acquiring military hardware, but if you don't address unemployment of young people, illiteracy of young people, you are simply wasting your time.
So why are we going to places where you come back with a body bag? Iraq, over 7,000 Nigerians are stranded in Iraq. We brought back a body bag of a man's wife. And this is not a poor person. The guy is not a poor person, but he sent his wife to Iraq to be a caregiver. Then he called me frantically, his wife is dead. He didn't know what to do. Iraq.
In discussing the distinction between cybercrimes such as doxing and cyberstalking and the freedom of expression, Dr. Monday Obani calls for a proper understanding of the law to strike a balance.
The law allows you to freely express yourself in a democratic society, but also know it that there are limitations even on the fundamental human rights. Section 45 says on so privacy, on issue of security, on issue of other areas, morality, there is a limitation by the law made in a democratic society. So it is important that those who sit down, with their iPad or with their phone and type all manner of things and abuse, cyber stalk, cyber bully others, there are consequences. The Cybercrime Act has made laws in order also to protect individuals.
Nigeria's constitution guarantees freedom of expression and the right to receive and impart information. However, advocates say this freedom must be exercised with responsibility.
As the Attorney General of the Federation, I reaffirm our unwavering commitment to upholding the rule of law and protecting the rights of all Nigerians. We are advancing reform to ensure that our legal and judicial systems are accessible, efficient, and fair.
Human rights advocates are also urging a complete overhaul of Nigeria's justice system to facilitate speedy judgments, especially for those held unjustly. Juliet Obata, Arise News.
Now, as we mark World Human Rights Day, we're joined by Damilola Decker. He's a program officer, global rights, and Frank Tietie is a human rights lawyer. and Arise analyst. Thank you, both of you gentlemen, for joining us on NewsDat, and happy Human Rights Day, if there's any such thing. Let me start with you, Barrister Frank Tietie. Human rights. Let's talk about the theme, our everyday essentials, and that's the theme for this year. But you presented a paper on human rights where you tagged it corruption and human rights, the hidden cost of bad governance. Let's look at that. That seems to echo what Femi Falana, respected lawyer, said there, that look, there are other things that you need to provide in terms of human rights, not just, you know.
Oh, well, thank you.
Right.
You know, we've mistakenly considered human rights to be restricted to those rights that are contained in Chapter 4 of the Nigerian Constitution, those rights that are from Section 33 to Section 44 of the Nigerian Constitution. But rights are, you know, basically they are human rights because they are inherent in every human being. They are rights that cannot be given, neither can they be taken. Their rights are inherent because a person is a human being.
Inalienable rights.
Now, yes, that's why Fela said that you can't dash me what already belongs to me. However, you know, if you look at Nigeria's international obligations, human rights obligations, human rights include right to housing, right to food, right to adequate health care, right to adequate standard of living, right to peace, right to social security, right to education, right to housing. Now, these are all human rights because they support the right to life. Now, Nigeria must realize that, you know, given the the level of resources that it has had since independence, talking through the times of the oil boom to date, Nigeria has had enough resources to ensure that every citizen lives a quality life. So corruption becomes the bane of enjoyment of those freely given rights. And it's unfortunate. And that's the reason why we must begin to examine the link between corruption and the violation of human rights, irrespective of whoever does, even the violation of civil and political rights. When you see a lot of police brutality or disregard for human dignity, oftentimes by violations by law enforcement authority, these are all expressions of corruption because it has to also do with bribery. So that link is what we actually address today. So human rights, everyday essentials, means that, look, provide housing for your people, provide food for your people, provide peace, because one of the human rights that we have often neglected is the right to peace, the right to security, whether it's social security or physical security. These are everyday essentials indeed.
Okay, let me bring in Damilola Deka. Thank you so much for being on the news tonight with us. And I just want to ask you, I mean, the United Nations today warned about grave violations of rights globally. But in Nigeria, I mean, given where you operate from, what would you describe as the most common and troubling human rights violations that we see in Nigeria?
Okay, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. When you talk about rights, there are different classifications of rights. We have civil and political rights, economic, social, and cultural rights. As Mr. Frank Tietie said, the fact of the matter is that by virtue of the fact that you are a human being, you are bestowed with certain entitlements by God, by our Maker, and irrespective of your race, your age, your gender, you have access to these particular things, and those are human rights. With regards to Nigeria, it varies over time. I would say right now, with what we see going on in the country, the issue of security has to be at the forefront of our minds. What are we seeing? We are seeing children going to school and then being kidnapped. We are seeing people just living in their society, just going to the farms, going to do what they want to do, and they can't live peacefully. And they are being attacked by bandits and things like that. So, of course, security is a very, very important issue. Section 14 sub 2B of the Nigerian Constitution states that security and welfare is the primary responsibility of government, and government is the primary duty bearer when it comes to human rights. So as far as Nigeria is concerned, the present Nigerian climate, I would say the issue of security comes front and center in our minds.
And let's take it from there. Security and human dignity. Mr. Frank Tietie, do you think the Nigerian government's approach, to people's rights is salutary enough? What exactly needs to change if you think it's not, living up to expectation in providing basic security for Nigerians?
Where we demand that human rights standards be observed in this country to the full, it's not with respect to the present government alone. Right. It's a matter of, a cultural mindset among those who actually govern. That is, given the obligations that Nigeria has had in terms of international human rights standards, our country should actually be, adopting the human rights approach to governance. That is, put the human being first, put his interests first before every other thing. And if that drives governance, you find that everything will take shape, including, try to stem the tide of corruption in the way it deprives people. Now, what needs to be done? I think it's important we speak to the solution, is that government must now realize that resources should be put into ensuring Nigerians enjoy their rights. But we find out that government agents, particularly law enforcement agents, who are supposed to protect human rights, are actually the worst violators of human rights. And you ask the question, a very pointed question, a very important one. That is, which right do we really consider as the most violated? And I think it's the right to liberty, because that's what happens with all of these forms of illegal detention that the police carries out all the time. So so the police harassment in the perception of Nigerians, actually, if you look at the latest Afrobarometer reports on human rights violation with regards to perception of corruption in this country, the police ranks the worst. And it is because they carry out these punishments, this harassment in expectation for bribes. So many Nigerians actually pay bribes in order to avoid police harassment. And whenever police, threatens or indeed carries out any form of detention or restriction of liberty, it is expected that many of these officers are expected to expect bribe in order to give Nigerians their liberty. So you see, that's the reason why many of us are clamoring for state police. Let policing be closer to the people so that they can be more responsible. The management of police force right here in Abuja, taking care of security across the entire country, is too far from the people. So you find all this police abuse every part of this country. So what we should expect is that these worst forms of human rights abuses perpetrated by law enforcement, represented by the Nigerian police force, must immediately stop. And on this day, it's a time to call on the Nigerian police to re-educate itself on human rights standards, to respect Nigerians, because that's the very reason. The police is supposed to be the foremost institution of government that protects and promotes human rights. Unfortunately, is the worst violator.
Okay, gentlemen, you make very valid points, and it brings me to my next question, because Mr. Decker, you talk about security being the most concerned human rights on the minds of Nigerians, and Mr. Tietie, you highlighted the role of the Nigeria police. So this question has to do with what we're currently dealing with in Nigeria. We have a situation where President Bola Tinubu says we need more force on ground, and so VIPs do not need police to themselves. On the other hand, we have the Nigerian Senate, senators who say and insist they do need police protection. Mr. Decker, does the insistence of senators keeping police protection undermine the principle that they have the rights to be protected? If the security is for all, or would you say that the lawmakers are justified in demanding that they keep their police protection?
That's a very interesting.
That Nigerians, or should all Nigerians have police protection? Should we remove the police protection? How do you situate that to what you have highlighted tonight?
I would say security is a universal issue. You are entitled to it whether you are a person, whether you are a poor person, whether you are a rich person, whether you are a person of influence, whether you're a politician or whoever. I will also refer to Mr. Frank Tietie's point about the police being a serial infringer of human rights in Nigeria. Section 4 of the Police Act, which states that the Nigerian police is actually supposed to encourage protection of fundamental human rights for every Nigerian. What we are seeing with regards to the police force is our security architecture in Nigeria cannot seem to find the right balance between protecting people and respecting human rights. Most times you hear people talk about security and human rights as if they are mutually exclusive. That's not so. Security and human rights are two mutually reinforcing concepts. You can have security and you can have human rights. With regards to what the people in the Senate are complaining about, the fact of the matter is that they are feeling what a lot of Nigerians are feeling. You have police on the streets, and what are they doing? They are mounting roadblocks, and unfortunately, most times they end up collecting money from people. they end up collecting creating more situations whereby they're even repressing the human rights of Nigerians. When they carry out arrests, they don't carry out arrests lawfully. They don't carry out arrests according to the Constitution of Nigeria, Federal Republic of Nigeria, which gives you stipulations on how, when you should arrest, informing people about what you are arresting them for, and the amount of time within which you are supposed to charge them to court. And that's why you have a plethora of people in correctional facilities who are there on remand for a very long time without actually being tried to court. So the fact of the matter is that I won't tolerate
the truth about it. That they don't deserve it. For goodness sake, you can't be responsible for providing good governance, and then you fail in that, and then you expect that the worst situation, you should be the one protected. When you are supposed to be the responsible person, it is morally and legally offensive and is irresponsible. It's not something that should be allowed. Why should you are supposed to make laws, make policies that will guarantee security. You fail in that, and then you now arrogate more resources to yourself. Come on, we can do better than this and stop this self-service approach to governance.
Frank Tietie will have to leave it there. Damilola Deka, Program Officer, Global Rights, and of course Frank Tietie, Human Rights Lawyer, joining us tonight on News Night.